People who saved themselves for marriage and eventually got divorced. What was your approach towards sex after the divorce? This was my wife. We've been divorced for 3 years, and I'm pretty sure she hasn't had sex since, and won't until she gets married again. So she's apparently been true to her principles. Honestly, same situation with my ex-wife. She's Mormon. I'm not. We dated for like 6 months after meeting, while I was in college. I was 21. She was 23. Married for like 11 years, had a son in 2011. We divorced in 2018. I'm 100% positive she hasn't even dated anyone since the divorce, let alone have sex. Bro, I'm sorry. That sucks. But for what it's worth, my parents divorced when I was little. And my mom force fed me her dogma like that too. Just take him fishing and stuff. I have a great relationship with my dad now. I love him. Your son will grow to see beyond Santa, the Easter Bunny and be your mom's theology, especially if he has the friendship of his dad. One of my lifelong friends comes from an extremely Christian family. All 3 kids were taught how bad sex before marriage is. 2 of the 3 ended up with children out of wedlock. My close friend of these siblings saved herself, but ended up rushing into marriage with very little self-awareness, and found herself in a completely sexually, and otherwise, incompatible marriage. All 3 are divorced at least once now. One has more baby mamas than I can keep track of. After my friend's divorce, she abandoned the no sex before marriage business. She didn't have any wild escapades, but developed strong sexual, and otherwise, chemistry with her now husband. Her parents still tried to shame them. It was a clusterfuck to watch over the years. Whenever a story starts with extreme, insert religion family, you know it's going to be pretty whack. I'm just trying to imagine what an extreme Quaker would be like. This doesn't apply to me, but I do have a friend who is in this boat. His approach has been to swear off relationships and be celibate for the rest of his life. Well, that's one way to handle it, I guess. Sounds like he will be the only one handling it. Mom didn't have sex for 8 years after getting divorced. She's a devoted Christian for sure. Unfortunately, she got wasted and ruined her 8-year streak. Got it on with my boyfriend's dad. Sigh. Are you going to be dating your stepbro here soon? Write this down. Sub people. I knew a girl that was very hands-off prior to marriage. I never really thought too much about it until I went to her wedding, and before they kissed the pastor made the announcement that this will be their first kiss, and I was blown away that they have never kissed before, but after their "you may now kiss the bride" kiss, it was obviously their first kiss. The rest of the wedding and reception went well enough, and I heard nothing from them for a few months until someone told me they are getting a divorce less than 6 months later. I have a few theories on why. I think the bride is asexual and either never realized it or did not reveal that prior to getting married. She got a bunch of tattoos after the divorce, full chest ink, sleeves. But I never heard of her dating after, but we are not close. I used to think I was asexual when it came to being in a relationship with guys. When it came to get physical, it's like something would just turn off in my head. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was shyness. Turns out I was just really gay. It's incredibly easy to be a prude when you have zero desire for the opposite sex. /closet case that went through a very religious phase in college. In our conservative Lebanese society, after the first divorce, you get a free pass actually. Some people would talk about you, but a lot of conservative people would just tell them she's divorced. She can do what she wants. From what I've been told, my GF, Greek culture is very similar. You get a black mark which can be seen as bad or completely liberating. Greek here, that's totally true. I'm in my mid-30s, divorced. Greeks usually don't get divorced, so I'm the black sheep. The old ladies at church ask if I'm dating, going out, etc. I feel like they are trying to live through me vicariously. Good question. I'm an ex-Mormon and was a virgin when I got married at 21. Was married for over 6 years, had a good active sex life, and when I got divorced 2 years back, it was a strange new world. I was excited to have sex with new people, but I quickly found after a handful of hookups that it wasn't always that great. There were some exceptions obviously, but I often find that people who haven't been in long-term relationships are pretty lousy in bed. Having a bunch of one-night stands doesn't make you better at freaking emo. Getting to know someone's body and experimenting does. If I could do it over again, I wouldn't have saved myself for marriage. The best sex I've had has been after my divorce. I have a general rule now that I won't have sex on the first date. I like having more of an emotional connection with the other person. It's more enjoyable that way for me. This so much. I dated a guy for a short time who was selfish, pushy and crap in bed. He would constantly bring up stories that gave him an excuse to talk about girls he'd fricked. He'd be telling me this awesome story about some crazy traveling experience, then just end it by yeah, sorry but I had sex with her. Like the story still made sense without telling me that. He told me he'd stopped counting at 51 night stands. He was absolutely terrible at sex. And the worst thing was, he wouldn't listen. You get better at sex by communicating and listening to what your partner wants. He did pretty much the opposite. Got married in my mid-20s, not realizing that asexuality was even a thing, let alone that I could possibly apply to a good Christian boy who had saved himself. Purity culture in some Christian circles can be a really rough time. We were married for about a year and a half, and I only ever came once from sex or sexual interaction with her. It was really rough for both of us. The hits to her self-esteem, the belief that I was broken in some way. Over time we just stopped really trying. A whole lot of other factors played into the split, but that was definitely one of them. I spent a couple of years after avoiding all possible romantic entanglements, then ventured out a little and found some open-minded people who I briefly dated here or there. It was nice to be close to someone again, and I have found that I really like making other people have a good time. There is something immensely satisfying to me to be the cause of someone else's satisfaction, but it can be a little hard for a partner since I'm so devoid of sexual reaction. It takes a fair bit of reassurance and good communication to keep that stuff good and healthy, and so they don't feel like they are using me or that I find them repulsive or whatever. Still a work in progress, I guess. Didn't think I'd figure out I was ace from reading a comment on this post, but here we all mayo. Glad to my experience is useful in some way. I guess my only advice is not to jump to any conclusions too fast unless you are really sure. It took me some time to really settle into my own sexual identity, and I do have one of those, despite not wanting sex things done to me. But I know for some people a label or word just clicks perfectly, feels like putting on the most comfortable clothes ever, and that's them for life. Be aware that sexual identity can change, and that it's okay for it to do so. I had to learn not to blame myself or feel like I had screwed up, but rather was learning about myself, finding my most comfortable fit for this stage in my life. Anyway, enjoy discovering yourself. Your experience is valid, valuable and important. This is probably gonna weird people out that I know this, but my mom. I know she could be lying, but her and I are painfully open with one another. She was raised at a private Catholic school growing up and claims she never had sex before marrying my dad in their late 30s, and I'm very inclined to believe her. They adopted us, me and my twin sister, when she was 43 and presumably couldn't have kids. My dad cheated on my mom with his current and third wife when I was 2 1/2, and my mom hasn't even been on a date since. She's very content with being single. She's 70 and has been single for 25 years. She said she got coffee with a guy when we were 4, but thought he was weird. She wouldn't qualify it as a date. I think my mom would go out with someone, but she doesn't care enough to look. She's not on dating apps. If she met some dude at the garden store and he just asked her out, she would probably say yes. It just doesn't happen. By and large, I'm pretty sure my mom just wants to hang out with my aunt, her sister and best friend, and garden. I kind of understand that with her. I'm married, in my 30s, and I swear, if my husband and I ever divorced, or if he died, I honestly don't believe I would date anyone again. I'm very content with being by myself though. I don't get lonely, and I don't get bored. If I did, I'd probably just go hang out with my best friend. I also don't have any desire to be with anyone else besides him, and I don't think that would change if we weren't together anymore. Learning to enjoy my own company was the best thing I've ever done for myself, but yeah, it almost handicapped my desire to find a mate. But they say love pops up when you least expect it, and that seems to be the truth for me. As someone who falls into this category, I felt like I'd been sold such a lie. I was told from the time I was a little girl, which is super creepy BTW, that anything sexual before marriage was wrong, so I didn't have it until getting married to my first boyfriend at 19. Cause yeah, no, the whole you can't have sex unless you're married, or else it not only means you're bad, dirty, ungodly, won't be blessed, maybe won't go to heaven, and definitely no one else will ever want you situation that I was told I was in. Anyway, after leaving my abusive ex several years in, I realized waiting was such a terrible idea. I had no idea about consent, a healthy life, communication, etc. All that to say, my views changed to that of thinking people should have sex with people they care about /love/ just want to have sex with, if everyone is an adult and wanting the same thing. I would never encourage my kids to wait until marriage. Quite the opposite, learn about your sexuality, safe sex, consent, comparability, etc. Don't rely on Sky Daddy to somehow weirdly just bless your virginal abusive sex life. The worst part about the church in this regard is that if you tell this story to a Christian, they'll probably say you did something wrong by choosing that man. They would never acknowledge that horniness could lead you to make stupid decisions, or that people, especially very young people, can pick crappy or incompatible partners and don't deserve to be stuck with them forever. I only partially fit here because my husband is the only person I've ever been with. We come from a yeehaw town that teaches abstinence as their sex edition. Lots of teen pregnancy here. For reference, I was shocked when my husband put it in. I didn't know it went in there. We didn't wait until we were married to have sex, but we did stay together all through high school and college, and I have never been with anyone else. He had sex with a previous girlfriend. We now have 2 children together and are going to approach the whole sex talk very differently than our parents did. Whether they're ready or not, teens have sex. I would rather my children be educated and safe when they are ready to take that step. As far as sex goes, I just can't really picture sex with anyone else/get turned on by the thought of sex with anyone else. I only know what sex with him is like, and he knows my body and what I like, so I have no complaints. He's my best friend and I don't ever see us getting a divorce, but if we did, I imagine I would have a pretty hard time wanting to have sex with anyone else, not for religious reasons. Ditto. My hubs and I were both virgins when we started dating. We had sex about 6 months into the relationship. I've been with him so long, and he knows exactly what I like and vice versa. I can't image sex with anyone else. And it wasn't great sex in the beginning. We had to learn each other's bodies. I can't imagine having to do that all over again. Now it's great, no complaints, but that awkward phase when we were learning, don't want to go through that again, lol. How I'm surprised I'm the only real answer here. I wanted to explore, and I did. A lot of it was about doing things and then being self-aware enough to know how I felt about it and if I wanted to do it again. I think in the end I've been more sexually active than most people I know. Tinder was a lot of fun for a while. I came out of that marriage with more confidence than I started it with, and that made me feel sexy, which made me horny, lol. I realized saving myself and being pure was sort of silly. Having sex with multiple people while I was single didn't and hasn't harmed my relationships since. In many ways it helped me know what I want and learn how to be vocal about it. Now 5+ years later I'm back to being monogamous and wanting to explore my sexuality with my current so instead of a bunch of people, but I'm still very open about a lot and also know where to draw the line. But I was definitely wild for a bit and had a blast. Finally, a good believable comment. After going through that first marriage and doing things differently once single again, do you regret saving yourself for marriage the first time? Basically, if you could do it all over again, would you still save yourself for marriage? I was a virgin when I got married at 19. Had kids after I graduated and paid off my student loans. Got divorced at 40. Asked Reddit for advice on meeting people and found OkCupid. Discovered that polyamory and BDSM really appealed to me. At 19, I sincerely believed what I believed and I made decisions from a place of integrity. So no, I don't regret being a virgin. I shouldn't have married that specific guy, though. I still live with principles of integrity and sincerity and living my beliefs, though I became atheist around age 25 or so. I have no intention of getting married again, unless there's a compelling practical reason to, and I currently live with my BF, and my 2 college kids are home too. My brother and his wife didn't have sex before getting married. Religious upbringing at both ends. Their marriage has been a bit of a disaster. While they are still married and have a kid, they are separated. They didn't really work from day one. It wasn't the lack of sex beforehand that is the reason for it, but more so the fact they never lived together before marriage. The two really go hand in hand when you think about it. Overnight they went from basically dating to living together. Given the problems they had, it was clear they simply did not know one another. My brother always tells me that he wishes they lived together before, not so much that he wishes they had sex before marriage. I think that the living together bit is what can undo a lot of no sex before marriage couples. I agree. I think living together may even be bigger than having sex before marriage. Growing up Catholic, it was always shoved down my throat that you can't cohabitate before marriage because the studies show that people who do always end up getting divorced down the road, which is so. I didn't understand it then and don't understand it now. How could you go from just dating someone, not knowing their habits and schedule and everything, to jumping straight into buying a house together and hoping for the best? My friend, who is very Catholic and went to school to study theology and catechetics, says that the divorce rates of the people who go to her school are so high because everyone there tends to meet the Catholic man of their dreams, date for 6 months, marry while still in school, move in together, and then realize they're a totally different person than what they thought. It's sad how common this is. I lived with my wife for over 4 years before getting married. We had many big moments where we could have easily walked our separate ways but didn't. I feel it is healthier to work through problems without pressure of marriage or kids. Knowing you can walk away, but choosing to stay together is a powerful thing that makes you stronger as a couple. If you only start working through the unavoidable problems after marriage, you're trying to stay together rather than choosing to